I was a structural designer until my own structure started to fail from rheumatoid arthritis. And within 3 months, I was barely able to walk and couldn't turn door handles. Pain in our body or illness, it's really just our body's way of talking to us, waking us up to say, make some changes, things aren't going so well. And then I started seeking out stories of people that had healed from rheumatoid arthritis. Pain really comes from the brain through neural networks. We can make the pain worse by creating fear or negative thoughts around it. If we're creating our reality from our subconscious programming, then that's what we're going to be creating. If we want to change it, then we got to start changing our subconscious beliefs. I had a significant reduction in pain in just a few days. That's why I speak out, is because I want people to have hope that they can reverse this. Our bodies are meant to heal. It's really an inside job. No one else is controlling your thoughts but you.
Goes aside from my soul.
Welcome to the Inspired Evolution. And today we have the blessing of having with us Jane Hogan. Jane, how are you there?
I am absolutely wonderful here in Newfoundland, Canada.
Oh, it is such a treat to tune in with you from here in Melbourne, Australia, all the way to Canada. I do have a very special relationship with Canadians. We had a housemate for almost 5 years that was Canadian, and I have to say, Canadians make the best housemates. You guys are just super considerate as like a general population, although I just found it to be, really incredible, just the Canadian attitude towards sharing space, understanding, just very empathetic generally. I know I'm generalizing, but I found it. She left a good mark in my mind.
You just can't help but be polite and courteous.
And lovely, yeah. Actually, I've got this awareness from all my travels that, the Aussies tuning into this podcast, pardon me for this, but it's what I've come to learn to be true for me anyway. So, you can hate me or love me for this. But I feel like what New Zealanders and Kiwis are to Australia is kind of what Canadians are to the US. It's like the best Aussie is a Kiwi. I wish I didn't say it that way, but that's kind of how I feel. They're just that little bit lovelier. They've got that little bit more like time for you in their day. They'll slow down just that little bit more. They're just that little bit more environmentally aware. And yeah, I don't know. It's the only way I can really describe it. Is that your experience a little bit being Canadian?
Yeah,
I know, obviously. Yeah.
I think so. And, I would even say that Newfoundland is to Canada what Canada is to the US, what New Zealand is to Australia.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Okay. So you're in this conscious little hub. I love it.
Yeah.
Let me do the honors, guys. For those tuning into Jane for the first time, she is, and check this, the engineer in me loves this, the life coach, leadership coach in me loves this. She's the wellness engineer, right? So if you search in online, the wellness engineer Jane Hogan, you will find a bunch of materials. She's the founder of the Wellness by Design Blueprint, and her mission here, she is blending science and spirituality, basically to help people heal and create the life of their dreams. So Jane, it is, like we were saying before you even jumped on the podcast live, there is so much overlap in our Venn diagrams of interests and passions and pursuits in life that I'm really excited for this episode and where it potentially can go. Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Me too. I'm excited to be here.
So let's go to the first point along the line, and I guess it's just going to be where my curiosity kind of has to take us. So you're an engineer, and like I struggled in that space for about a decade. You struggled for 3. So I'd like to sort of, without sort of starting in the friction points, but sort of speak to that friction, like sort of tune in and go, hey, how was, what was that, like, okay, let's start with the pivot. What caused you to pivot from engineering to wellness engineer? Like what was going on there for you potentially? And I'd love to sort of hear your story and sort of, understand what caused a shift, because it is quite a seismic shift to go from working on projects, crunching calcs, numbers, working with people on, trying to get things done, to all of a sudden working on people and helping them on their journey. It's quite the pivot, as I know myself. So I'd love to hear your story.
It is. And I was, yeah, 30 years in. Well, my little joke is, so you're a structural engineer, I was a structural engineer. My little joke is that I was a structural designer until my own structure started to fail with
Uh,
crippling joint pain from rheumatoid arthritis. I didn't have it for a long time. It came, and within 3 months, I was in, barely able to walk and couldn't turn door handles.
Jesus.
So it was very quick.
Did it affect like your like? Is it just your hands, or like what happened? What like is it
Oh,
like all your joints?
it was all over. I felt like someone had a voodoo doll and they were sticking pins in because it would switch around, and I felt like I was
Oh.
crazy. I was
Mm,
going to physio. Well, I didn't know what it was when it first started, and I went to physio and I was like, I know that last week I was saying it was my left shoulder, but today it's my right elbow. And it
mm,
was switching all around my body like that. I really felt like a crazy woman. But then it settled in all over.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And eventually I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune condition. And
Right.
I didn't even know anyone with an autoimmune condition
Mm-hmm.
before then. And it certainly wasn't in my family or anything. But I quickly learned a lot about it. And the outlook isn't so good for rheumatoid arthritis. Oh, there's no cure. And the only solutions are medications with really harsh side effects, like cancer and other things. So it wasn't
Jesus.
like a lot of great options in front of me.
Sounds very dire.
Yeah, yeah, it was nasty. But well, we're engineers, right? We're problem solvers. And so I just started
To a
at it
fault,
like,
I would say.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
it's so true because I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out because that's what I do. I just okay, what's the research? What do I do?
Mm,
Do an experiment and
yeah.
track everything and graphs and charts. I did all of
Wellness
that.
graphs and charts. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So you really went there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Uh, what's really interesting, so this took me on a journey where I learned about food and lifestyle and eventually functional medicine. And I thought
Mm,
I'll learn a little bit more about functional medicine. So I'll do a health coaching course, not necessarily planning to be a health coach, but just
mm,
thinking that it was a good way to learn more about it.
mm,
And I discovered through the program every month we had a mind body component, and
mm,
I was like, mind body medicine, this is really cool. Like I was always kind of interested in it, and I'd been
mm.
trained in Reiki. So I always had this other side to me, and I was like a personal development nut. I read all these personal development books and everything.
Yeah.
And so I started to realize I can't like go at this like go hard and control like we do in engineering. I had to like surrender. I had to surrender to the going. I had to surrender to
Mm,
and rest. I had to surrender the uh that logical mind, right?
mhm, mhm.
And let go of that a little bit and let the miraculous kind of happen. And anyway, there's a lot we could talk about there, but
Yeah.
there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Wow. So you've been on this journey and the medications look too sinister well, the side effects of the medications looked a bit sinister as much
Yeah.
as what you're going through. It's an interesting point to reach because I remember when I got diagnosed with depression, they gave me like these antidepressants. And full disclaimer, massive asterisk at this point in the conversation, make your own informed medical decisions, guys. Like, I'm going to say that I took my first antidepressant and it was amazing. Oh my God, it was such a good feeling. It was like a medicated high. It literally
Yeah.
was. And then when I came down, though, I realized, oh, I've come back down, and I didn't know much at the time, but I knew that I didn't really want to live up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And so I literally cautiously took like the packet of antidepressants and just threw it in the bin when that was my only lifeline at the time. Um, and I still look back at that kid and just go, wow, that was really interesting decision making, Amrit, that you went into. Um, to sort of go, okay, there's going to be another way, like a mind body way or like a natural way, or there's, something else other than this medication way that's going to guide me forward. You said you were already a personal development nut and you were already passionate about mind body connection, but you did describe that you went into functional medicine health coaching. But sort of what do you think it is about people like yourself, myself, that sort of go, is it the engineering that goes, actually, there's many, there's option A, B, or C, and, option A doesn't seem to be the one that resonates with me the most, and maybe I'm going to explore option B and C and sort of see where that takes me. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I mean, pretty early on, my conventional doctor said, well, while we're waiting to see a rheumatologist, and because we at that point we didn't know what it was, she did say that sometimes foods can cause joint pain or contribute to joint pain, and the foods she said were gluten, dairy, and sugar. And so I cut them out cold turkey, and I had a significant reduction in pain in just a few days, which made me think, okay, there is something I can do.
Right.
So what else can I do? And then interestingly, my father had a ton of health issues his whole life, but he used to go, so he had diabetes, he had like 2 triple bypasses, he had cancer, and all a bunch of things. But he used to go to these like a health farm, we used to call it. And he would go off all his medications while he was there through food and exercise. And so I kind of knew about this. Also, I knew that I had a really stressful year the year before, like when the onset of symptoms.
Yeah.
And like it was just too coincidental that I had this stressful year and then I
Right.
had this illness. So I knew that stress had to be a part of it. So I'm like, stress is an emotional thing, right? That's
Yeah.
within my control. So it made me just realize there's got to be other things. And then I started seeking out stories of other people, and I found a few stories here and there of people that had healed from rheumatoid arthritis. So that gave me hope and belief. And I think that's really important when people can have hope and a belief, because we're told all these other things. Like I said, you search on the internet for, that's the first thing someone does when they get a diagnosis, is do a search, maybe even before.
Yeah.
And so they start losing hope because of what they read. So that's why I speak out, is because I want people to have hope that they
Yeah.
can reverse this, and many, many other things. Our bodies are meant to heal. They're healing machines, and they will continue to try to heal until we
Yeah.
take our last breath.
It's incredible, isn't it? So and we will get to the control surrender because there's a whole deep conversation waiting for us there. But let's talk about beliefs for just a moment, because it does run the risk at times to be, I'm going to sound rude at this particular juncture saying in the comments, but it does run the risk of sounding fluffy when you say it without the context that we've already been like, because we're already in into this conversation contextually. It makes a lot of sense when we bring up the term belief. But if someone takes a snippet of this, long form podcast and then makes a, YouTube short and just goes, oh yeah, beliefs, these guys are talking about beliefs, there's like, here we go again, just believe, but it is a foundational tenet, right? Like actually being able to believe something. Can I ask, because there would have been contradictory advice online, and I think, this is not necessarily for just those that are suffering with rheumatoid arthritis, but, I think we can extrapolate this to people that are suffering with different things at different times. There would have been a lot of voices online that would have said, hey, like, these medications, et cetera, have helped me. And then you would have been reading some, it's like, hey, like cutting out these foods, adopting this approach, or, getting some sunlight or grounding or whatever was in there started to help me. And, like being able to discern that for yourself and going, actually, I do believe in this. Was it a natural like ability of yours to just go, oh yeah, I actually do, and you just naturally gravitated towards it? Or do you think, and even, having worked with clients before, how do you start to install that belief or support that belief system within clients that, hey, like there is a natural way, or more natural, not to say that, a lot of the medications, oftentimes I find we demonize them, but like 99% of the pharmaceuticals are synthesized from something in the Amazon. So there's some element of, nature synthesis on them. But yeah, I think you get the nature of my question. How do you start to apply belief in where there may not necessarily be belief?
Sometimes you can't change people's minds. That is the truth. Like, because beliefs are deeply rooted. Um, I guess for me, I mean, I did have, sometimes I had doubts, but actually, I guess I'll share this if I can get a little bit woo woo.
Yeah,
And I think I'm safe to get a little bit woo woo. But
definitely.
so when I was sort of at a rock bottom moment, like I wasn't sleeping and I was just like curled up in pain and really couldn't see a way out of it. I didn't even know what it was at that point. But I was really at this rock bottom moment, and I had this thought that if this is the way my life is going to be, I'm ready to be done. Like, I don't really want to go on. Now, I wasn't like suicidal in that moment, but
Yeah,
I
but
did
enough
have
was
this like
enough.
there's nothing for me to look forward to.
Mm.
And then in the next moment, I had
Mhm.
this other thought or download or whatever, and or voice and or an inner knowing that said, you are going to figure this out and you're going to help other people. You're going to show other
Oh.
people how to do it. And so I'm lucky. I had this deep knowing, like I knew I was going to figure it out. I just like had to keep
Mm.
on going. And so I think that really helped me. But there's a book by Hal Elrod. He's famous for The Miracle Morning,
Yep.
but he's written another book called The Miracle Equation.
Ah.
And that was he said the miracle equation is unwavering faith
Mm.
combined with extraordinary effort.
Mm.
Unwavering faith and extraordinary effort. And I think that I applied that miracle equation. I didn't know about it at the time,
That
but
you were
looking
doing
back,
it, that you were
that's
doing
what
it.
I
Yeah.
did. I had unwavering faith and I just kept on. I kept taking effort. So going back to your point about beliefs, it's not just sitting there like, I believe I'm going to get well. I believe, and maybe that might work for some people.
Mm.
I wouldn't rule anything out,
Yep.
but it's also taking action, right? I had
Mhm.
changed my life. I did leave the engineering career that was creating stress in my life.
Mhm.
I don't eat gluten or dairy or sugar. Well, I still have a little bit of dairy once in a while, but
Yeah.
I just don't do that. I prioritize sleep now. I look after my body. So yes, I did take inspired action and I kept taking action as well. So, I don't think if I just sat there going, if I believe I'm going to get well, I don't know if that would have worked. Maybe, but
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that you touched on there is, well, there's a lot of interesting, but well, there's two parts I want to go down. Which rabbit hole? Let's go down the knowing piece. So you mentioned belief, and then we were discussing that, but then you said there was this knowing
mm,
that actually I was going to get through this, and I was going to help others. It's a very different place that resides in your body or wherever it resides. I don't even know where that knowing resides sometimes. I
it
look at it as
is.
like, because some part of me, like, there's a knowing that conscious conversation is what I'm here to do, touch wood, right? And like, whether it looks like podcasts or it looks like speaking, one on one with people, coaching, whatever it looks like, it's like, yep, conscious conversations. And there's just like just like you start trying to build a business around it or whatever, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And you're like, yeah, well, that stuff's just noise. There's a knowing. And and I think in the belief space, we can often, like you said, I'm not sure if it would have just transformed if there was a belief, but there was a deep transformation available for you because there was this deep inner knowing. And I think knowing transcends belief in that regard.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I think there's a really deep rabbit hole there. The other point that I was going to try and hone in on a little bit was I found myself I learnt this along my journey a little bit through the podcast. Is one of the guests, I think it was Eric Edmeades, he discussed this idea of belieficals, and I really loved this topic of like awareness. It's like all the cells in your body also have this little beliefical aspect to them, right? It's like the
Mhm.
energetic part of them. And he described it as, and it's really helpful. It's really helped me. It's kind of cuckoo, but anyway, let's go there, right? Each of your cells, like every time you eat a salad, you affirm that you're the type of person that eats a salad, and you start to believe that you're the salad eating person, that you're healthy. But every time you eat a burger, you affirm that you're the burger kind of person, and all the stories that come in with that. Now, you may not have the belief that eating burgers makes you unhealthy, but every action that you take, you're feeding a beliefical, and each beliefical has a story that's attached to your system. And it's just a matter of feeding those beliefs the right story so they operate the right way, and then also the action, which is what you described on the other side, so that they get nourished into that story that you're trying to tell them. So I found it, I couldn't help but reflect on that as you were sharing that for the mindset pieces. It's like, yes, absolutely, there was like the belief, which was actually underpinned by this deep inner knowing, but then also the belief equals were being fed the right ingredients along the way through the actions that you were taking, by actually, taking on the functional medicine course, and leaning deeper and deeper into, just finding ways to heal through nature. So now you've, like, how's your rheumatoid arthritis now? I guess I've got to ask that question, don't I?
Yeah, I don't have any pain.
Yeah.
If I get stressed, if
Mm.
I start working a whole lot and not honoring those rhythms, right?
Mm.
Not getting exercise, then like my wrist may start talking to me. I go, okay, I know I got to start
Mm.
prioritizing me. So it's not like it's I don't think of myself as having it anymore, but I get
Yeah.
little and really, I don't even really like to talk about diagnoses that much, even though I talk
Yeah.
about it and name it because I
Mm.
want to give other people hope. But it really doesn't matter. Like really pain in our body or disease or illness,
Mm.
it's really just our body's way of talking to us, waking us up to say, hey, got to pay attention, make
Yeah.
some changes because, we're trying our best here, but things
Yeah.
aren't going so well.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because I find a similar conversation is present for me with stress. I'm often, as a purpose coach, people are often like, I like, I say this all the time, and I know it rubs people the wrong way, but like stress is such a gift, and I dare not say that pain is such a gift, but like, but
I
it's
can,
kind. Well, see, that's what I'm hearing you say
yeah,
in some ways. Like, it's actually your free health coach in your
yeah,
body, in your system, going, hey, it's not working. Hey, something's not aligned. Hey,
yeah.
listen. Hey, listen. Um, do you reflect
Or
on the conditions? Oh, sorry, please go on.
no, I was going to say, or even I think of it a lot of times as like a small child, that kind of to have that compassion for the pain or an illness, whatever it is, that it's like asking for help. And so
Mm,
to look after it and to feel about it the way you would the compassion you would feel for a small child or a pet or something that was hurt, right? That loving sense of compassion.
it's really interesting you bring that up because I've only become a father about 18 months ago.
Oh,
Um, yeah, touch wood. And it's been a really incredible journey. It's opened up a lot of stuff for me, but I've often heard what you've just shared to me said to me, but I've never really been able to like drop into it because I've never really been a parent. I've always had to intellectualize it to some degree rather than feel it. But now
yeah.
when you say something like that, it opens up this massive portal of self-awareness where I look at how callous I am towards myself. And I don't think I'm alone in that boat. I think we are all quite harsh towards ourselves. These inner critics, this
Yeah.
self-victimization, this, beration that there's like, I was coached by Eckhart Tolle to become a coach. So he talks about just that, that inner voice. And you start to realize I'm not this voice, but there's this voice, and you're like, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
but it's, and then I start to realize as I'm interacting with my son, it's like, none of that comes out. It's none of this like, oh, come on, you could have done that better. It's like,
Yeah.
that is not once have I said that to
No.
him in the last 18 months. Like, come on, man, you could do better than that.
Stop
And
crawling so badly.
that's one of the nice things I say to him. It's like, you could do better than that. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, but it's always just like, oh my God, amazing. And look, if you take that to the next bit, watch what's going to happen, and it's like, it's just so constructive. It's so productive when you have that compassion, that empathy for it. But then turning that inwards back on ourselves is not as intuitive, would you find, which I find also compounds the stress and the pain in some ways. It's like exacerbates the mental pain, would you say? Can you reflect on that through some of your coaching a little bit?
Oh, for sure, because pain really comes from the brain, right? And it's
Mm,
coming through, doing what the brain does through neural networks. And so we can make the pain worse by creating fear or negative thoughts around it. And that creates sort of more pain in the body, which then creates more fear. And then it's like the wiring, the neural networks in the brain just keep getting wired more and more and deeper and deeper. And so that pain, fear circuit keeps on going. So we can definitely do something about it, just by wiring different networks. So what we think about, right? What is it? The thoughts that fire together, wire together, that kind of idea, right?
Yeah, the neurons that fire together, wire
together. There we go.
Yes.
Thank you. And so if we're constantly firing the neurons on pain and it's bad and I'm afraid and what does this mean for my future and why doesn't it go away and why me, that's going to keep firing those neurons, right? So what we want to do is, I mean, we can just even distract our mind with something else, right? Or just try to look at the pain or the illness with compassion, or even just like objectively, like just be the observer. Oh, that's interesting. It's a sensation that's in my body right now. That kind of thing. Now, I know it's not easy to do. I understand. I had pain and all I thought about was the pain and why is this happening to me? But I didn't realize that by doing that, I was reinforcing
perpetuating it.
Yeah.
Look, let's have this conversation because we're two engineers talking about mindset here, which is, I'm so grateful for you doing what you do. Sincerely. What am I trying to say? Myelination as a process, I think it's totally worth talking about. And I don't think everybody understands it. So even as I say the word myelination, I'm going to be maybe conservative and say 80% of the audience. I'm hoping people are more aware of it. But so like you said, neurons that wire together, fire together, right? So you've got an idea, let's just say pain and then, there's a trigger and then there's pain. It's like, oh, yep, trigger. And then the thought that follows in is pain. It's like, ouch, and then pain, and then ouch, pain. It's like, potentially, and I'm not saying this is always available to us because sometimes the pain, like you said, is, a super highway of information. And maybe that before I start talking about rewiring it, we should talk about what happens. So every time you fire those two neurons together, literally a myelin sheath is the structure in your brain. It's like this white cord that literally gets between those two nodes. It's like thought, trigger, and then thought and action, those things wire together. So that wire that we're talking about is actually called myelin. And the more times you ping that circuit, you form a myelin sheath. So you get more and more myelin strands to the point where eventually, after time, that becomes a super highway of information. Mm-hmm. The other part is like the path of least resistance, right? And I know you're aware of this. It's like, so if that is like a 7-lane highway, information is just going to go down there every single time because it's like that's got 7 lanes built into it. But instead, if you go, oh, pain, oh, that actually means I'm healing. Mm-hmm. Which is not intuitive, and then you go, oh, but it doesn't really, I don't really believe it. And it's like, actually, you've built a super highway through your childhood experience and your adulthood experience of like, pain means, enough or whatever, like the story maybe that you're telling yourself. You've built that story and you've built that super information highway, and that's what it's going to keep doing. It's like pain victim, pain victim, pain victim, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to pain healing. But it does take the energy and the conscious effort to go pain, victim, pain healing. And you're actually actively rewriting the process for yourself. You're re-engineering your mind, right? Really.
I know. Powerful, aren't we?
It's insane, isn't it? It's really something. And then the more you ping that new pathway, the more opportunity it has to become the 7-lane highway. The best part about when I started engineering, and this is two engineers nerding out on mindset, by the way. Thank you so much for the space you're holding in this conversation, Jane, is that the old highway can actually atrophy, right? Because if you don't use it, you lose it. So the old highway atrophies and the new highway starts to come together as well, which is actually really exciting in terms of what's possible for actually changing mindsets. Your awareness on how long potentially that takes, like you've worked with quite a few clients in terms of rewriting, what's possible for them, even reflecting on your own journey. How long does it normally take? Like, is there a general, I'm sure everybody's different, but generally, do you sort of reflect on that process with your clients and, how long does it take-ish?
It it can be different for different people. Like honestly, sometimes this can be instantaneous. It's
Wow.
like it's amazing. It can be very, very quick. And
Mm,
sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It's just, if this is the source of the pain, then if people keep going back to their old thinking habits,
mhm.
so then it's going to take longer, right? So
Yeah.
it just depends on the person, and it's really an inside job. So
Yeah.
no one else can do this. No one else is controlling your thoughts but you. No one else
Mm.
is controlling your feelings but you. And so it really is up to the individual and for how long it takes them, because it just depends on how long, how often they keep slipping back to old ways of thinking. So, but I've seen stuff happen very quickly. Like it's just amazing to me when I give someone, a breath work where we'll focus on the area with loving attention, and they'll go, wow, it was a 6 out of 10 and it's gone now. It blows my mind. I mean, it happens a lot, but it blows my mind still.
Mm. You also mentioned earlier that, a big part of your healing journey was your emotional shift. So where do these beliefs and emotions where do they draw their source of inspiration from?
Most of the time from childhood and,
Mm.
people that we learn from. When you think about it, most of our beliefs aren't even our own beliefs. They're just beliefs that were given to us or imprinted in us by our parents, our caregivers, our teachers, our coaches, whoever, friends, siblings. So that's where most of it comes from. And Bruce Lipton, I interviewed Bruce Lipton for my
Yeah.
podcast, and he talked about 95% of the time we are operating from those subconscious beliefs.
It's crazy,
So
huh? When you look at it that way, it's like, who am
it
I?
is.
It's like you're just a receptacle of all the drops of water that have been dropped in as you've been walking along the river. And it's like, what? Who am I? He's amazing, isn't he, to talk to? But yeah, please
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, if we look at it like that, we've got to really get at that subconscious. Oh,
Mm.
we got to have awareness of what our subconscious is. Now, another friend of mine said it's not hard to tell what's in your subconscious mind. Just look at your life.
Mm. It literally is
And
a printout, isn't it? It's insane. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we could talk about quantum physics. Not that I'm an expert in it, but I like to talk about the principles of it, because if quantum physics says we're creating our reality all the time.
Yeah.
So if we're creating our reality from our subconscious programming, which is what's running most of the time, unless we're aware and until we change it, then that's what we're going to be creating, right? So
Mm.
we want to, if we want to change it, then we got to start changing our subconscious beliefs, and that can be done. A lot of different ways of doing it, and some people may need one might work for them, or they may need to try a lot of different modalities.
What's one particular way that you really enjoy facilitating for people to change their subconscious beliefs? Or like an easy one, or one that we can take away? Yeah.
Yeah, an easy one. I mean, people may like poo-poo affirmations, but
Mm.
I really find affirmations powerful if you believe them, if you feel the feelings that go along with them, if you say them in the
Mm.
present tense, I am. And I love looking in the mirror. I mean, I had to start doing this for myself,
Mm.
saying these affirmations in the mirror, looking at myself, feeling good, and then the visualization to go along with it. So I used to do visualizations of,
Mm.
I would imagine, when I was strong and fit, that I'd be hiking up to the top of a mountain, or I'd be on a
Mm.
sailboat and I'd be pulling up the sails, or playing with a grandchild. I don't have grandchildren yet, but I would imagine I was playing with a
Mm.
grandchild. And these brought me like a lot of really joyous kind of feelings. So,
Mm.
I'm sure you've talked about on the podcast before that our brain can't tell the difference between a vision that we're imagining and something that we've actually seen with our eyes, right?
Mm.
So, to my brain, these were real things. So, my brain is now working to create that reality. And
Mm.
it has come true. Well, I haven't got a grandchild yet, but I
Touch
have
wood.
hiked mountains. I totally can pull up the sails on a sailing boat now. So, yeah. So I found visualizations, affirmations really powerful. People
Yeah.
can do it on their own. And then I really like having body techniques as well, because we
Mhm.
store. emotions in our body. So things that happen when we're little that we didn't know how to deal with at the time just kind of got stuffed in. So I love tapping,
Mm.
emotional freedom technique tapping. I love the
Uh-huh.
tools that people can just do on their own. I don't know how
Yeah.
popular that is in Australia, but it's getting more widely known here in North America.
Yeah, I've done some really interesting podcasts recently. Like even the emotion code, that was really
Yeah.
interesting, feeling into that work. And it was interesting because I often, and I don't know, I wonder what you feel about this. Because as there's still the engineer very much alive in me, which, goes into, okay, so I'm going to run a script like emotion code, take it as an example, and you sort of read it and you go, okay, da 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 da, like, where's this located? Okay, it's located here, and this is what I need to clear. Okay, clear it. And then you clear it, and then you're like, whoa, I actually feel different, but like, I don't get why this would work. It's
Ah,
like, there's still that part of me that's looking for something empirical, sometimes even beyond my direct experience, which is like, okay, the experience is it's actually working, but it doesn't make sense why I can't see the machine.
yeah,
And
I
it's
know.
like,
Yeah.
do you get that, Jane?
Where's
Like or is it
where's the
just me
printout
that
report? Where's the quality control report?
it's like, wow, it's actually working. And it's like, yeah, it does work. And it's like, oh my God, it works. And it's like, this is amazing. I'm actually shedding stuff. I'm actually moving through emotions. I'm moving through things that I've been holding for a while. Wow, incredible. And it's like, how? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
really work? It is
I
really work. Yeah, do you find yourself in that conundrum with stuff sometimes with all these tools?
I do. I do. I think I did more, and now I kind of go with the flow a little bit more and
Yeah.
kind of trust myself a little bit more. That's like the letting
Yeah.
go. But really, I gotta tell you, Amber, I did this clearing with I worked with a coach for a little while, and
Mm,
it wasn't EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, but it was similar. It was
mm.
blink therapy. So
Okay.
basically, similar to tapping, we would
Mm,
make all these statements while I was blinking my eyes and looking left and looking right and looking up and down. And it was
mm.
quite interesting. And another thing, I've got it right here, because I'm an engineer and I'm very, right-bodied, left-brained.
Yeah.
I had to. One of the things I did was cover up my. I think it was my right eye. I think that's what it was. But anyway, my dominant eye to so it's kind of we've got two sides to it, so I had to let my dominant side take a little break and let the other side have a bit more power with eyes. I mean, it was really interesting because I found with this patch thing, I put it on, and if I just let my eyes relax, all I would see would be black, like the inside of this. I didn't wasn't even
Mm.
seeing out of my other
The
eye.
other one.
That's Yeah.
Wow.
It was kind of wild, very eye-opening, no pun intended. Um,
Didn't. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that was an interesting experiment, and I could like you talk about like you need feedback, right? I
Mm.
got feedback immediately. If I just let my eyes relax, this eye was taken over. So that was a sign. Like I'm very dominant. Like that's the
Mm.
way that's my personality. It's probably why I was an engineer. That's
Yeah.
just the way I am. But it's not serving me in the best way. So how could I let the other
Mm.
side? And so I found yoga and breath work really helpful for that too. You do using balancing types of breath
Mm.
and exercise to really get both sides working together.
Yeah, the theme around balance is really present. Also, control and surrender,
Yeah,
yeah, is really here now. So let's dive deeper into that because as engineers,
we don't
well, in many
surrender.
ways, yeah, well, we're designed to control things and like, put this here, make this spin, turn it on, turn it off. You've got control over what you're building, and it's controlling a bit of science to sort of have a human application to it in the world. It's very control based.
Yeah.
Um,
And it needs to be really for public
Absolutely.
protection, right?
Yeah, 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 definitely.
That's what our
Definitely.
job was to do.
But then also maybe just, okay, it's our job to do. That's a great way of describing it. But then when you zoom out at us as those cogs facilitating more cogs going into the system, um, so like even just sort of wondering if 30 years of, you dedicating yourself to engineering and then having such a stressful year and then, that creating the pivot, that element of control and then, surrender in terms of, oh, this is where life is now taking me. Like, is that present in your awareness in terms of, do you reflect on that in terms of the balance between control and surrender and the life you're living with control, and now you're working in a space where it's so dynamic, each individual's different, is like, like it's just so, can you describe your relationship, even through your healing journey? Must have been really interesting, like you said, to let
Surrender
go.
was hard. It was very hard. I was someone that, like, I never napped. I couldn't nap. My husband would say, well, you'd have to close your eyes to nap. I'm like, yeah, I can't close my eyes.
Look, I got this eye patch. She closes one eye. I'm getting there. All right.
Yeah,
Got this inner child I'm working on. I'm giving it praise. I'm giving it positive praise. I need that from you. Sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't. I just had to go all the time. And I love like making a list and checking it off and, really planning and down to the detail. I mean, that's kind of what our training was, right? But so that was really a lot of work for me, but that was where the healing happened, actually, was in surrender. Just surrendering to the process, surrendering control, surrendering to, as I said before, like, yeah, I do need to rest. I do need to make time for me. It's surrendering the negative beliefs I had about myself. There's so much to surrender, but it's after surrender that then the healing can really happen. So it's like intention and then surrender and then inspired action. And so, like, surrender in meditation, right, it's a surrendering our mind, and look at all the good that comes out of that. Surrendering the monkey mind all the time, the busy mind. When we can surrender that, then we can get that peace and get into that the beautiful parasympathetic state, which is the only state where healing can happen. And so we have to get, if we want to heal our body, we have to get into that state as much as we can, because, well, that's where the magic happens.
I'd love to dive deeper into the parasympathetic state. Before we get there, though, you did mention there is so much to surrender. And oftentimes I think there's a bit of an impotence there, because even as you were sharing that, I could feel my overwhelm kicking in, in terms of how did you, like, when you were going through your healing journey, it must have been overwhelming. It must have been overwhelming to surrender. Like, there's so much, especially for someone that's, control oriented, but even for most people that control is a part of life. Like, order keeps us all sane, right? But chaos is, some may argue, the natural order of things, is as counterintuitive as that is. Like, it can be quite overwhelming. Any tools to support you with that, or any just reflection on your own experience of the overwhelm as you're coming into surrender?
Yeah, I think when I really had to step back from my job I realized that I couldn't fully surrender and really fully commit to my healing in that work. So I had to step back, and that really helped. That really helped. But I was fortunate that I could do that. But you know what? We always have a choice, right? We really do always have a choice. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, is they think they don't have a choice, but really we do. When you get creative, right? When you do that surrender, you can allow the creative thoughts to come in, and then you can get creative about solutions on how you can make this work so that you can serve yourself and give yourself what you need so that you can surrender. So there is surrender in the surrender.
Yes. It's really interesting, isn't it? Like, I reflect on even just myself as a life coach and lifestyle design stuff that I've helped people with, building out a vision, taking action. Initially, it was I was very yang about it. It was like, come on, let's go. And I had, like, and then I went through a period where it was like, actually, you're going to get there no matter what. It's like I became superhuman about it. It was like the fact that you can see it and feel it, and you can feel it, right? It's like, yep, it's a knowing, yeah, yep, okay, it's already happened. It's you're just integrating the shift into your life, and now there's like this awareness of you've got to just you've got to go along, and then you get along, and then you build upon the getting along, and you start to really get along. But it's definitely a dance. This whole the surrendering, and I think it feels spiritual in its nature because the more you learn about it, the more it opens up and the more it calls upon you to go further with it, I find. That's maybe just my reflection on it. But it's almost like the more I learn to surrender a little bit in my little, egoic world, and then it's like, okay, good job. And then for a little while, things will be great. And it's like, oh, now you're going to let that go too. And it's like, no. And it's like, yep, you're ready. And it's like, I don't want to. It's like, and then I look at myself going, oh, what's that part of you that doesn't? Oh, that's the attached part. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what we're learning right now. Okay. And I acknowledge that even that some part of me is trying to control through the growth mindset and going, oh, you're growing. And it's not true surrender because I'm clinging to the growth mindset of what I'm surrendering. Yeah. Anyway,
that can
it's
get
quite
your
the
head
rabbit
into a
hole.
little bit of a spin.
Totally, right? But it can be, and I think ultimately it speaks to the overwhelm of how deep that journey of surrendering can really be. And the overwhelm that's present for us there. So having spoken to that a little bit, so just validating those of us that are surrendering out there in the world, you mentioned the parasympathetic nervous system. Even when you were talking about eyes, I was totally like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk about this. But the eyes and the vagal nerve, and you talk a lot about healing in your work. I know breathwork's a massive component of it. You mentioned yoga's been a big part of your work balance, but I think, discussing, healing, I'm opening up the floor a little bit there, but also just with that sort of peppering of the, like the different states that our nervous system drops into and how vital that is for us to be aware of. Because I think, especially Melbourne where I live, we're like the coffee capital of the world in some ways. It's just like caffeine, jack yourself, go! And it's like, and then do you ever stop? It's like, yeah, so I'd love to get your insights on healing and just our nervous system.
I think people just don't even really realize that they're in that sympathetic state most of the time. That, go, that undercurrent of fear. I mean, we're not thinking fear, but every time we get an email or a ding, all of that, or we look at social media and think, oh, look what they got. There's all this, when it comes down to it, it's either on the fear side of things or the safe side of things, right? And so whenever we're in that fear side, our brain thinks we're in a life or death situation. So it increases respiration, increases our heart rate. It sends blood to like the big muscles and sort of not disregards, but sort of puts offline, digestion and the endocrine system goes offline, the immune system, right? All of these kind of like, they're not important to an immediate threat, which is what the brain thinks we're having. And so that creates a cascade then of things going wrong in the body, and the cells are picking up. You talked about the cells, right? They've got like the little antenna on every cell that's picking up like what's it like out there. And so they're, it's not safe. All right, let's produce chemicals for for life or death and safety, which are not necessarily the chemicals for well-being. And so the body begins to break down. And a lot of our immune system is in our gut. And so then throw on top of that the crappy food that most people are eating. Well, food-like substances, let's call it that, instead
cardboard.
of food.
In some instances, it's got the nutritional quality of cardboard. In some instances, I'm
Exactly.
just going to call it for what it is.
And then chemicals, right? There's, I don't, it's probably similar in Australia that is here. We're inundated with chemicals. And so there's a lot for our poor little body to deal with. And so it's dealing with a lot. So we've got this stress in the form of emotional stress, thoughts, we've got stress in the form of toxins that are coming
Mm.
in, and then maybe even on our skin. And so the bucket gets a little bit full, and
Mm.
then at some point it overflows, and so then we start to have breakdown in the body. So if we can get ourselves into that parasympathetic state, then the immune system's working well again, the digestion's working well, we're sleeping better, then we're healing. So that's where we should be most of the time. We
Mm.
really only have that sympathetic state for those life or death situations, which back in the day we're running away from a tiger or whatever, and that was a short term, not frequent
Mm.
threat.
Mm.
Instead, now we've got frequent threats all the time, and
Yeah.
and so it's having a detrimental effect on our bodies.
I'm sure there's multiple techniques that you teach that you also sit with yourself, but I guess for the audience tuning in, again, I don't mean easy but I'm just trying to make it what's easy for you to share in this episode, just so that the listener can take something away, because it can be quite overwhelming when you start to become aware of just the sea and the soup of everything of your reality and kind of how much of it is supporting me and how much isn't. And it's like, whoa, it can be quite the rabbit hole to dive into. But, I know you're a massive advocate for breath work as well, and I found that one works really
Yeah.
well for me. But do you have parasympathetic nervous system? How do we come back to that? Do you have any exercises you might be able to share or point us to that might be
Well,
really helpful?
absolutely. I mean, the breath is the fastest way to
Mm.
immediately get yourself into the parasympathetic state. It's free. You've always got it with you. You're doing it anyway. So there's
Yeah.
just so many great reasons to use the breath. And I mean, if you want to, we could run through a little practice if you would like us to do
Yeah, I
that.
think that'd be awesome. I'll ask the audience permission,
Okay.
guys. Do you want to do this? The
Yeah.
quantum
Let's
field says yes.
I love
I
it.
think it says yes,
I
or it might
love
be my delusions. Either way, we're doing this, guys.
it. Beautiful, beautiful. So I really love this breath work technique that has been really well studied by the Heart Math Institute in
Oh.
California, and
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
heart focused breathing. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I'm certified by the Heart Math Institute, but yeah, I'd love for you to share it. Yep, yep,
Ah,
yep.
I love it. Okay, well, would you like maybe we could do a different one then if you've
No, let's
probably
do that
shared
one. Let's do
one.
that one. Let's do that one. Let's share it. It's the one that's
Okay,
present for
I
you,
have
so let's
I
do it.
have my own little take on it, so it might be a little
Perfect.
different.
Here we go.
Yeah, might be a little different. Okay, so let's just get nice and relaxed. So, obviously, if you're driving, you might want to pull over or wait and listen to it later. So, you can close down your eyes and just begin to notice your breath. Notice the breath as you breathe in, and then notice the breath again as you exhale. Breathing in and breathing out. Fully supported where you are. Now imagine that as you breathe in, the breath is filling up your heart, filling up the heart and all the space around the heart with every inhale. And as you continue breathing in and out of the heart, bring to mind a person or a place or a time when you felt love. So it could be someone that you love, it could be a pet even, or it could be a time when you felt love. Whatever it is, think about it now and notice what you see. Notice the colors. Notice what you hear. are the sounds? What do you feel? If you're outdoors, maybe you feel something, the sun on your face or the wind. Maybe you feel the person touching you or you touching them. Notice what you feel. Maybe there's something you can smell or taste. And notice that feeling of love. Notice how you're feeling it in your heart. Imagine now that it's filling up your heart and even bigger than your heart now. And it's filling up your entire body. Let it get bigger, even bigger than your body. Bigger again, it's filling up the room that you're in. It's so big. And now gather all that love up and pull it back into your heart again, saying, this is for me. It's all in your heart and it's there whenever you want it, anytime. Just do 2 more breaths here, feeling this love in your heart. And feeling gratitude for this love in your heart. It's always there for you. Then you can slowly, gently open your eyes and come back to this space. How do you feel, Amrit?
I feel like I left a different podcast and I've landed in a different one, to be honest.
It's such a gift, isn't it?
I feel, well, the engineer in me would put it as down-regulated. The coach in me would be blissful. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really amazing that we can create this feeling within ourselves. Just with our thoughts. We can always do this anytime we want.
Yeah. Jane, you've got a really incredible voice for guiding meditations as well. I have to acknowledge that. Thank you so much for doing that for us. It was a real treat. I can say that on behalf of myself and the Inspired Evolution audience. Yeah. And there's a whirlwind of questions that I know want to tumble in, but I think this is a really nice place to leave the podcast today. For those that do want to check out Jane more, I have to say she's got her own YouTube channel and podcast. There are such great conversations that she's had centered around engineering wellness in your own life. Sorry, I'm talking on your behalf. Maybe you can share a little bit about where people can check more out about you, Jane.
Yeah, well, my website is thewellnessengineer.com. And my podcast is Wellness by Design, and it's on YouTube as well. You can find me there through the Wellness Engineer or Jane Hogan Health, and I'm on social media as those as well. So those are the great places to find me.
Yeah, it's really incredible when checking out some of the testimonials of what's happened for people as well. It was really inspiring to tune into your work. So thank you so much, Jane. And I think it's really special to have you here today, obviously, for this conversation, but I also know it's a lifetime's worth of work on yourself, in yourself, controlling, letting go, surrendering, doing, showing up again and again and again, and going through your own healing journey and trusting that inner knowing that, your journey is part of supporting other people's journeys. I just want to take all my hats off and just acknowledge you for everything, and just thank you so much for sharing yourself so abundantly here with us today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure being interviewed by another engineer. I think it's the first time. So that's been really special. So thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you're doing. Your podcast is amazing. You're changing people's lives, making the world a better place. So I so appreciate you for that.
Touch wood. Thank you so much for your blessings. And as always, guys, Inspired Evolution Tribe, we would not be here having this conversation without you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. It is such an inspiration for both of us, Jane and myself. I can speak on her behalf, being your brother and your sister walking by your sides, guys. As always, stay inspired. Keep evolving. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to its end. Obviously, you absolutely love this podcast, and I want to thank you so much for watching this all the way through. Here is another video that's perfectly curated just for you to watch as the next best video to keep your inspiration flowing, to keep you evolving, to keep you going. Check it out now.